The ancient machine stopped moving and sealed its weapons shut. One single red light on its dark hull shifted color. The battle screens burned bright and flat, but this new light felt warm and uneven, like a fire seen through a window. The machine floated 12 kilometers from the human transports, close enough to see. 100 hegemony dreadnoughts waited on the other side. No warning, no weapons, no movement. 8-year-old Ja pressed her hand flat against the cold glass of the transport window. The machine read her heat signature. It logged her weight. It filed the data under a new category. What I learned that day was simple. True power does not destroy. It just stands in the way. 3 years earlier, Captain Yara Osai stopped counting at 11. She sat in the command chair of the Harbinger. Her patched ship was the last human warship left. Not the last in a fleet, just the last one. 214 people lived on board. The hull had more repair welds than original steel. They had run for months. They had hidden in rock fields and dark gas clouds. They were tired. The first officer offered her a chipped ceramic mug of dark coffee. The cup was a relic from a dead colony. She shook her head. He drank it himself in 2 long swallows. "Waste of good coffee, Captain," he muttered. He wiped his mouth with his dirty sleeve. The deck plates vibrated under her boots. Engines ran low. Life support strained just to keep the air clean in the thick gas of the maw. The hegemony hail looped on the main screen, promising safety if they gave up. Everyone on the bridge knew what processing meant. Osei tapped her thigh 3 times, then 5 times, then 7. "All hands," Osei said over the ship comm. "This is the captain. I will not lie to you about what is coming. 11 ships, 3 angles, no exit." She looked at the main screen. The enemy formation held perfectly still. "Charge the main railguns," she said. "All power to engines. Navigation, I want you on the helm yourself. We are going straight down the center." The bridge crew stayed perfectly quiet. Then the engineer spoke over the radio. His voice sounded like dry gravel. He had already mourned the ship once. Engines spinning up. The Harbinger drove forward. It pushed right into the center of the trap. Enemy models always predicted retreat. Those models were built by people who never fought humans in a tight corner, people who expected surrender. At 400 kilometers, the enemy fired a warning shot. The bright beam missed their wing by a hair. The next one would hit. The weapons officer, a young kid named Tors, started whispering numbers. He counted down the distance in 10-kilometer chunks. Osei tapped her thigh. 3, 5, 7. Prime numbers kept her grounded. The ship rattled so hard her teeth ached. Osei grabbed the armrests of her chair. Fire. The first railgun slug stripped the shields off the nearest dreadnought. The air pressure in the bridge dropped sharp and fast. The second shot punched a clean hole right through the center of the big ship. Boiling gas spilled out into the vacuum. The Harbinger took heavy hits in return. Thick armor plates ripped away like wet paper. Red warning sirens screamed from every screen. The ship took the fire the way a stubborn man walks through heavy rain head down. Keep moving. Osei felt the tearing screech of the hull breaking apart. A massive heat beam cut across their lower decks. It burned through the crew rooms. Sparks rained down on the bridge from the cracked ceiling. Smoke filled the air. It smelled like burning copper, sweat, and sour plastic. "Keep moving," Osei said. Her voice stayed flat and cold. She did not look at the casualty list flashing on her screen. The gap closed fast. 100 kilometers. 80 kilometers. The huge hegemony ships tried to turn their heavy sides to block the path. They were too slow. Their engines burned bright blue in the dark space, but they could not move out of the way in time. The first officer looked up from his screen. His hands gripped the edges of his desk. He did not speak. He just watched the red numbers drop to 0. "All power," Osei ordered. The Harbinger drove into the side of the hegemony flagship like a heavy steel spear. Metal crushed metal. The human ship locked itself deep into the enemy wreckage. Its engines kept burning. Its guns kept firing. It was dying, and it refused to stop fighting. Deep inside the hegemony ship, Fleet Arbiter Velmorinth sat in his massive chair. He watched the human ship rip into his own hull. His jawplates clicked together in sharp bursts. He could not process this math. He only knew how to fight enemies who gave up. Far from the fire, Osai's final command executed itself. A single data packet broadcast into the dark, out toward the dead stars. It beamed out on a channel that had been dead for over 2,000 years. Deep inside the bone orchard, something woke up. The orchard was a dead star system. It was filled with ancient broken rocks. Nothing lived there. No ships traveled through it. The signal reached the center of the dust cloud. An old process snapped open. The vigil came online. It did not warm up weapons. It did not start engines. First, it listened. Its sensors swept across the galaxy. It looked for the builders. It found empty worlds. It found burned cities. It found humans scattered, hiding in the dark, going invisible just to stay alive. The vigil read the debris at the maw. It tasted the chemical trace of human hull armor. It felt the heat of the recent burning. The ancient machine began to count. It counted the dead. The count reached 6.2 billion. The vigil did not have a human word for grief. It filed the number anyway. It marked the event as an end of species emergency. The machine pulled power from its dark core. Heavy gravity waves pushed the dust aside. It moved out of the orchard. It crossed the black space between stars. It ignored the hegemony border patrols completely. When a squad of fast attack ships tried to scan it, the massive gravity wake blew their tiny ships off course. The sheer force of its passing scrambled their targeting sensors for hours. It did not slow down for anything. The machine had slept for 2,000 years in complete silence. It was fully awake now, and it had a job to do. Back near the maw, 14 human transport ships ran for their lives. 11,000 refugees packed inside them. Behind them, 100 hegemony dreadnoughts poured out of a slipgate to finish the job. Velmorinth watched the target readouts on his fresh ship. He reached for his heated flask. He took a slow, measured sip of warm food paste. His sensor officer made a strange sound. A new shape had just dropped out of slip space. The shape was larger than a moon. It was heavily scarred. Huge chunks of its outer shell were missing. It looked like a moving mountain of metal. It flew straight through the center of the hegemony line. It did not fire a single shot. The sheer mass of its gravity wake spun 3 dreadnoughts out of control. It kept going. It reached the space right behind the human transports. The vigil stopped. It cut its engines. It sealed its thick armor plates. The hegemony fleet halted. 100 ships faced one ancient machine. The vigil sat quietly. It did not try to guide the transports away. It did not charge the enemy. It simply blocked the path. On the bridge of his flagship, Velmorinth stared at the screen. The glowing patterns on his chest flashed from calm blue to bright orange. He had spent 40 years running clearing missions. He had ordered 12 different colony purges. He had never seen a tactic like this. "Target it," Morinth ordered. His voice stayed low and calm. The dreadnoughts locked their heavy guns on the machine. The vigil did not raise shields. Its thick metal skin just sat there, waiting for the rain. Inside the transport, Littleja kept her hand on the glass. She felt the deep hum of the machine in her bones. She knew it was talking to them, but not with words. The vigil's internal systems worked fast. It analyzed the threat. It processed the numbers, 100 ships against 1. It did not care. It was built by people who were losing a war 2,000 years ago. They built the worst thing they could think of, hid it in a dark hole, and told it to wait. The machine did not want to fight. It wanted to protect. True protection was not the ability to kill everything. True protection was the willingness to stand in the way. The Vigil opened a wide radio channel. One massive dead-looking ship, the size of a small moon, floated between the hunters and the hunted. The standoff held tight. The Vigil pushed its signal onto every hegemony screen. It overrode their command codes. It forced their speakers to full volume. It watched, it learned, it spoke. The voice was not human. It sounded like grinding metal and deep gravity. "You tried to erase a species," the Vigil said. "You failed, do not try again." Then the machine started reading names. It broadcast the name of every human who had died in the last 40 years. 6.2 billion names. It did not stop, it did not pause. The names poured out in a steady, heavy rhythm. The broadcast lasted for 6 solid hours. It was not just a loud sound on the radio. The heavy data filled their screens with plain text. It overloaded their displays with faces, dates, and places of birth. Every single human life lost in the war flashed across the monitors. Record keepers on the hegemony ships tried to log the data, but their systems crashed from the sheer weight of the memory. No one had a plan for this kind of event. The hegemony was built on neat, clean rules. They did not know how to handle a ghost that refused to stay buried. Velmorinth looked at his screen as the names finally stopped. He saw a set of numbers pop up. The numbers marked out a huge circle of space around the transports. It was not a threat, it was a hard border line. The hegemony fleet turned around and went home. They did not fire a single parting shot. The war operations stopped across the galaxy within 3 days. The silence felt strange, thick, and heavy. The Vigil guided the 14 transports to a small, cold moon called Yelith. Blue-gray grass grew in thick patches across the dirt. The sky was pale yellow. The machine fired gravity waves to clear the land. It ripped huge plates off its own outer shell. It used its own armor to build weather shelters and water cleaners for the humans. It made itself smaller so they could live. 40 years later, Admiral just stood on the bridge of her own ship. She named it the Ares Ultima. She looked out at the stars. She remembered the massive machine that had saved her. It was the name for a thing that waits in the dark when you forget it is there. There will be no chase, there will be no fire, there will be no end. She pressed her palm flat against the cold glass. Far away, in a dark orbit above the blue grass, an old machine powered down its engines. A single warm light clicked off.